I'm Diane Patterson, and I'm 68 years old. The day my granddaughter Lily tore me out of my house like the building was on fire, I thought she'd had some kind of breakdown. Turns out, she'd discovered that my son and his wife had been slowly poisoning me for 6 months. It was a Thursday morning in November. Lily had come over to help me touch up the paint in my guest room. She's 22, studying art restoration at the university, and she's always been my helper with home projects. My son Robert always sneered at her choice of major art restoration. What kind of career is that? She could have been a lawyer like her mother. Lily had been working for maybe 20 minutes when she came out of that guest room looking like she'd seen a ghost. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her phone. She grabbed my purse from the hall table and thrust it at me. "Grandma, we need to leave right now. Don't turn on any water. Don't eat or drink anything. Just get your coat and come with me, Lily." "What on earth, please?" Her voice cracked. "Please, Grandma. I'll explain everything once we're away from here. But we have to go now. Right now." The terror in her eyes convinced me. I grabbed my coat and followed her out to her car. She was already backing out of my driveway before I'd even fastened my seatbelt. "Lily, you're scaring me. What did you find in there?" She was crying now, wiping tears away with one hand while she drove. "I was patching a hole in the drywall, the one behind the dresser. The wall felt weird, like it was hollow when it shouldn't be. So I pulled back more of the damaged drywall to see what was behind it." She pulled over 2 blocks from my house and turned to face me, her face streaked with tears. "Grandma, there are pipes running through your walls that aren't part of the house's original plumbing. New installation, professional grade, running from your main water line into a hidden reservoir system. And the reservoir is filled with something that's not water." I took a photo. She showed me her phone. Behind the drywall was a complex network of copper piping, valves, and a sealed container about the size of a large cooler. Medical-grade tubing ran from the container into what looked like a dosing system. "What am I looking at?" "A poisoning system?" Lily whispered. "It's injecting something into your water supply." "Grandma, I saw the same kind of setup when I was restoring a historical building last summer. The building had been contaminated with lead, and the remediation company installed monitoring systems in the walls. This looks exactly like that, except it's designed to add something to the water, not filter it out." My mouth went dry. "That's impossible." "Who would?" "I already called 911, Lily said. "I told them I found suspicious pipes and chemicals in your walls. They're sending police and a hazmat team. But, Grandma, we can't be there when Dad and Mom arrive, because I think they did this." "Your parents, Lily. That's absurd." "Is it?" She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "When did they insist on replacing your water heater? When did Dad say he'd found someone who could do it cheap? 6 months ago? Robert had insisted my 20-year-old water heater was dangerous and needed immediate replacement. He'd hired someone, supervised the whole installation himself. He's a chemical engineer, works for a pharmaceutical company. He'd said he wanted to make sure the work was done right." My phone started ringing. Robert. Then a text. "Mom, neighbor, said she saw Lily's car leave in a hurry. Is everything okay? They were watching my house. They'd seen us leave." "Don't answer," Lily said. "Let the police handle this." She drove to a diner across town and called her boyfriend. Marcus arrived 15 minutes later and just held her while she cried. I sat in the booth, numb, trying to process what was happening. 20 minutes after we'd fled my house, Detective James Walsh called Lily's phone. She put it on speaker. "Ms. Patterson, this is Detective Walsh with the county police. We're at your grandmother's residence. The hazmat team has examined the system you reported. You were right to call us. This is a sophisticated chemical delivery system designed to introduce a substance into the home's water supply. We're testing the contents of the reservoir now, but preliminary analysis suggests it's a heavy metal compound, likely thallium or arsenic. Your grandmother needs to get to a hospital immediately for blood work." I felt the room spin. "They've been poisoning me. Mrs. Patterson, I need you to go to County General Hospital right now. Ask for Dr. Chen in toxicology. I've already called ahead. They're expecting you at the hospital." They drew what felt like a dozen vials of blood. Dr. Jennifer Chen, a woman about my age with kind eyes, explained what they were testing for. "We're checking for heavy metals, particularly thallium and arsenic, as well as other common poison compounds. Detective Walsh said the delivery system in your home has been active for approximately 6 months. If you've been consuming contaminated water during that time, we should see elevated levels in your blood and hair." "What would these poisons do to me?" I asked. "Chronic low-level exposure, confusion, memory problems, digestive issues, hair loss, numbness in extremities, kidney damage, neurological symptoms, over time, organ failure and death, but it would look like natural aging or degenerative disease. Very difficult to detect without knowing to look for it." I thought about the past 6 months, the stomach problems I'd attributed to stress, the fatigue I'd blamed on age, the confusion that Robert and his wife Jennifer kept pointing out to everyone. You forgot you already paid that bill, Diane, don't you remember? You told me you were making roast chicken, but you made pork chops. Are you feeling confused? Mom, you've asked me that question 3 times today. I'm worried about your memory. They'd been documenting my decline. A decline they were causing? The blood work took 3 hours. When Dr. Chen came back, her expression was grim. Mrs. Patterson, your thallium levels are critically elevated. You have chronic heavy metal poisoning. Another few months, and you would have been experiencing severe neurological damage, kidney failure, and likely death. Would it have looked natural? I asked, echoing the question I'd asked about the carbon monoxide in a previous nightmare. In a woman your age, almost certainly. We would have likely attributed it to stroke, dementia, or organ failure. Thallium poisoning mimics many age-related conditions. Without knowing to test for it, we probably wouldn't have caught it. She paused. Your granddaughter saved your life. A few more months and the damage would have been irreversible. They admitted me immediately for chelation therapy to remove the heavy metals from my system. Lily stayed in the room with me. Marcus went to get her some clothes and toiletries. Detective Walsh arrived that evening with more information. Mrs. Patterson, we've executed a search warrant on your home. The reservoir system contained pharmaceutical-grade thallium sulfate, about 2 kilograms of it. The dosing system was calibrated to release small amounts into your water supply continuously. We estimate you've been ingesting approximately 15 milligrams per day for the past 6 months. Is that a lot? A lethal dose of thallium is about 600 to 800 milligrams total for an adult. You've consumed approximately 2,700 milligrams over 6 months. You should be dead, Mrs. Patterson. The only reason you're not is because your body was processing some of it out. And because you apparently don't drink as much water as whoever calculated this dosage expected. I've never been a big water drinker. I prefer tea, and I make that with filtered water from my refrigerator dispenser, which had its own filtration system that predated the poisoning setup. We've also obtained warrants for your sons and daughter-in-law's arrest. Detective Walsh continued. We executed them an hour ago. They're both in custody. What did they say? Your son exercised his right to remain silent. Your daughter-in-law, however, became extremely agitated when we arrested her at her law office. She said, and I quote, "This is insane. We were helping her. She's losing her mind and someone needed to take control. When we told her about the poison system in your walls, she said, 'That's not poison, it's medication.' We were treating her confusion." Medication? I asked incredulously. She claimed they were administering an experimental treatment for dementia that her pharmaceutical contacts had provided. Of course, thallium sulfate is not used for any medical treatment. It's a rat poison, an industrial chemical. She was either lying or genuinely deluded. Over the next 2 days in the hospital, the full scope of the conspiracy emerged. Detective Walsh brought a laptop to my room and showed me what they'd found in Robert and Jennifer's home and computers. Mrs. Patterson, your son and daughter-in-law have been planning this for at least 18 months. We found detailed plans on their computer, emails between them discussing dosage calculations, research on how to make poisoning look like dementia. He showed me the emails. They were clinical, cold, discussing my death like it was a business project. Robert to Jennifer, mothers showing initial symptoms, confusion, fatigue, digestive issues, exactly as predicted, should accelerate timeline. Jennifer to Robert, no, slow is better, establishes pattern of decline, 6 more months minimum. Have you documented this week's incidents? Robert to Jennifer, yes, she forgot lunch appointment. Thought it was Tuesday when it was Wednesday. Left stove on overnight. All witnessed and photographed. Building good case for incompetence. They were gaslighting me, I whispered, making me think I was losing my mind while they poisoned me? Yes, Detective Walsh said. They'd also been talking to your neighbors, your friends, even your doctor about their concerns regarding your mental state. Building a narrative of decline? Why? Why would they do this? He pulled up financial records. Your son and daughter-in-law are in serious financial trouble. They owe over $400,000 in debt. Your daughter-in-law was embezzling from her law firm to cover the shortfall. She was going to be caught within months. They needed money desperately, so they decided to kill me for my inheritance. Not quite that simple. He showed me more documents. They'd already forged a power of attorney with your signature. They'd created falsified medical assessments showing progressive dementia. They'd prepared guardianship paperwork. The plan was to have you declared incompetent, move you to a memory care facility, take control of your assets, and then let the poisoning finish the job. Your death would look like tragic but expected progression of dementia. I felt sick. How much am I worth to them? According to their financial planning documents, they estimated your estate at $3.2 million. properties, investments, life insurance, business assets. Before we continue, please leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, and subscribe to Never Too Old channel. We're creating a community of people who know that our best chapters can happen at any age. Now, back to the story. Let me explain how I got here, how my only son could plan my murder so methodically. I'm Diane Patterson, born Diane Wong. I married Thomas Patterson 47 years ago. We were both 21, young and ambitious. Thomas worked as an accountant at a small firm. I worked as a bookkeeper for a property management company. We saved every penny, lived in a tiny apartment, drove old cars, cut every corner we could. By the time we were 30, we'd saved enough to buy our first investment property, a small duplex that needed work. Thomas did the renovations himself, working nights and weekends. We rented out both units, saved those rents, and bought another property, then another. By the time we were 40, we owned 7 rental properties, and Thomas had started his own accounting firm specializing in real estate tax planning. I'd moved from bookkeeping to property management to real estate development. I had an eye for undervalued properties and the skills to renovate them into profitable investments. By the time we were 50, we owned 15 properties outright and had a real estate development company that employed 12 people. We had one child, Robert, born when I was 24. We gave him everything: private schools, college fund, every opportunity. Thomas wanted him to understand the value of work, wanted him to start at the bottom of the business and work his way up, like we had. Robert refused. He was ashamed of us. "You're landlords," he'd say with contempt. "You make money off other people's labor. It's not respectable." He got his chemical engineering degree, went to work for a big pharmaceutical company, married Jennifer, a lawyer. They looked down on Thomas and me on our blue-collar success. They wanted corporate prestige, even though they made less money than we did, but they spent like they made millions. Big house in the exclusive suburb. New luxury cars every 2 years. Designer clothes, expensive vacations, country club membership, private schools for Lily and her younger brother Mason. And they went into debt. Massive debt. 3 years ago, Robert came to me asking for money. "Just $50,000, Mom, to consolidate some credit cards. We'll pay you back." I gave it to him. He never paid me back. 6 months later, he needed another $40,000. Medical expenses, he claimed. I found out later there were no medical expenses. It went to credit card payments. I stopped giving him money. That's when things changed. Thomas died 2 years ago. Heart attack, sudden and devastating. We'd been married 45 years. I was shattered. Robert and Jennifer were solicitous at first, helped with the funeral, sorted through Thomas's things, checked on me regularly. I thought grief had reminded them what mattered. Then 6 months after the funeral, they started the campaign to get control of my finances. "Mom, you're 66 years old and managing 15 properties by yourself. It's too much. Let us help you. Robert has his engineering degree. Jennifer's a lawyer. We can manage the portfolio more efficiently." "I've been managing these properties for 30 years, I'd said. "I think I can handle it. But you're getting older. What if something happens to you? What if you become confused? We should set up a power of attorney now, while you're still competent. Like I was already slipping. I refused. I had my own attorney, Sandra Kim, who'd worked with Thomas and me for 20 years. I had a will, a living trust, everything properly documented. Robert became cold after that. Visits became less frequent, but when he did visit, he always found something to criticize. "Mom, this house is too big for you. You should sell it. Move to a condo. You're looking tired. Are you sleeping okay? Maybe you should see a doctor about your memory. You seem confused today. Did you take your medications?" I wasn't confused. I was sharp, managing my properties, my development company, all my finances. But Robert kept insisting I was declining, kept documenting every tiny mistake as evidence of incompetence. A year ago, he insisted I needed a new water heater. "Mom, this thing is 20 years old. It's dangerous. It could explode. Let me handle it. I know someone who can do it cheap." I'd agreed. It seemed reasonable. The water heater was old. Robert supervised the installation himself. His guy spent 3 days at my house, working in the basement and behind walls. Robert was there the whole time, explaining what they were doing. "We're upgrading your whole water system. Mom. New heater, new pipes in some areas, pressure regulators, the works. This will keep you safe for years." That was a year ago, right when the poisoning must have started, though it took 6 months before the dosing system was fully active and properly calibrated. They'd been planning my death for at least 18 months, researching poisons, calculating dosages, designing the delivery system, building the narrative of my incompetence, setting up forged documents, planning every detail, and I never suspected, not once. On my 3rd day in the hospital, Lily told me the rest of the story. "Grandma, I need to tell you something. About Dad and Mom. about why I was really at your house that day. She looked sick with guilt. I've suspected something was wrong for months. You started getting sick, forgetting things, seeming confused. But it didn't feel right. You've always been so sharp, and Dad and Mom kept pointing out every little mistake, documenting everything, making these concerned comments to everyone about your declining health. You thought they were gaslighting me? I didn't know what to think. But 2 weeks ago, I overheard them talking. I'd stopped by their house to pick up some books I'd left there. They didn't know I was in the house. I heard Mom on the phone saying, "We're too far in now. We have to finish this. Another 4 months and the symptoms will be severe enough. And you didn't tell me?" Tears streamed down her face. I didn't know what it meant. I thought maybe they were planning to have you declared incompetent, not actually poisoning you. I thought I was being paranoid. They're my parents. How could I believe they'd actually hurt you? So why did you come help me paint? I wanted to look around, see if I could find anything that would explain what they were doing. When I found that hole in the guest room wall and felt something weird behind it, I thought maybe I'd find hidden cameras or recording equipment. Evidence of surveillance I never expected. I never imagined. ... double quotes. She broke down sobbing. I pulled her close. "Lily, sweetheart, you saved my life. You found the evidence. You got me out of there. Don't you dare feel guilty. But they're my parents. How could they do this? How could Mom and Dad plan to murder you?" I didn't have an answer for that. Over the next week, Sandra Kim, my attorney, worked to assess the full damage. The poisoning system had cost about $15,000 to install. The thallium sulfate, another $8,000. They'd spent over $20,000 on equipment to murder me. Money they didn't have. The installation costs had been charged to credit cards they were already maxed out on. They were so desperate they spent money they didn't have. To murder you for money they didn't have yet, Sandra said with disgust. Sue them. Sue for everything. Medical costs, property damage, pain and suffering, punitive damages. They're bankrupt, Sandra. There's nothing to take. Then we make sure it's on record. Every dollar, every bit of harm. It becomes part of the criminal case. I also hired a private investigator, Marcus Webb, the same one Lily's boyfriend knew through his construction company. What Marcus found made me physically ill. Jennifer, my daughter-in-law, had been involved in another suspicious death 5 years ago. Her aunt, who'd helped raise her, had died suddenly of what was ruled as acute kidney failure. Jennifer had inherited $125,000. I can't prove the death was suspicious, Marcus told me. But Jennifer was a frequent visitor to her aunt's home in the months before her death. She had access to the woman's food and water, and the symptoms confusion, weakness, organ failure, consistent with thallium poisoning. She's done this before, I whispered. Possibly. I'm sharing this information with Detective Walsh. They're reopening that case. The detective work revealed something else. Robert had been researching poisons for years. His browser history, recovered from his work computer, showed searches for undetectable poisons, heavy metal poisoning symptoms, how to induce dementia symptoms, going back 3 years. They'd been planning this since before Thomas died. Maybe his death just accelerated their timeline. Jennifer's law firm fired her when they discovered the embezzlement. She'd stolen over $280,000 from client trust accounts over 2 years. She'd been covering the thefts with new deposits, a classic Ponzi scheme that was about to collapse. She needed your money to cover the embezzlement, Detective Walsh explained. She was going to be caught within weeks. Your death would have provided the funds to replace what she'd stolen and escape prosecution. So they'd decided to murder me to cover up her crimes? For weeks after Lily saved my life, I confronted Robert and Jennifer. It happened at the courthouse, at their arraignment. I hadn't seen them since before Lily discovered the poisoning system. I'd been in the hospital for a week, then staying with Lily and Marcus while my house was being decontaminated and the poison system removed. Robert and Jennifer were both in orange jumpsuits, handcuffed. They looked terrible. Robert had lost weight, his face gaunt. Jennifer's hair was greasy, her eyes hollow. When they saw me walk into the courtroom with Lily, Sandra, and Detective Walsh, Jennifer's face crumpled. "Diane," she called out. "Diane, please, this is all a misunderstanding. We were trying to help you. You were getting so confused. We were just trying to treat it by poisoning me with thallium sulfate," I asked coldly. "By installing a chemical delivery system in my walls to slowly kill me? That's not what it was. We were administering medication, experimental treatment for cognitive decline. Robert's company has access to cutting-edge pharmaceuticals. Stop lying," Lily shouted. "I saw the lab reports. It was thallium sulfate. Rat poison. You were killing her." Robert finally spoke. "Mom, you don't understand. We were drowning. Jennifer was going to be disbarred. I was going to lose my job. We have debts, responsibilities. You're sitting on millions while we're losing everything. You're 68 years old. You've lived your life. We needed..." "So you decided to murder me for my money?" I finished. To poison me slowly so it would look like dementia, declare me incompetent, steal my assets, and then let me die in a memory care facility while you spent my money paying your debts. We weren't going to let you suffer, Jennifer insisted. Once you were in care, once we had control of the finances, we would have made sure you were comfortable. We would have stopped the treatment. You would have recovered enough to live out your remaining years peacefully. Except the medical evidence shows another 4 months. Would have killed me, I said quietly. Dr. Chen testified that my organ damage was already severe. You weren't going to stop. You were going to let me die. Robert's face hardened. You did this to yourself. If you'd just given us power of attorney when we asked, none of this would have been necessary. You were too stubborn, too controlling. You forced our hand. I forced you to install a poisoning system in my walls. I forced you to research murder methods for 3 years. I forced you to embezzle from your clients. I shook my head. You did this because you're greedy, entitled, and couldn't accept that your expensive lifestyle had consequences. The arraignment was brutal. The prosecutor laid out the evidence methodically. The poison system in my walls. The pharmaceutical-grade thallium. My critically elevated blood levels. The emails planning my death. The forged power of attorney. The embezzlement. The pattern of previous suspicious deaths. Robert and Jennifer pled not guilty. Their attorneys tried to argue that the chemicals were legitimately intended as experimental medication, that they'd been trying to help me, that they'd been deceived by unethical pharmaceutical contacts. The judge, a man in his 70s named Harold Morrison, was not impressed. I've been on the bench for 31 years, he said. I've seen financial crimes. I've seen elder abuse. I've seen children manipulate their parents. But this level of premeditation, this degree of cold calculation to slowly murder your own mother with poison, documenting her decline as you cause it, planning to inherit her wealth while she dies, confused and frightened in institutional care, this is extraordinary in its cruelty. Bail is denied. The defendants will be held without bond until trial, Jennifer screamed. Your Honor, please, I have children. I have a son who needs me. You should have thought of that before you poisoned your husband's mother, Judge Morrison said flatly. Bailiff, remand them to custody. I watched my son and daughter-in-law being led away. Robert wouldn't look at me. Jennifer was sobbing, still trying to claim it was all a misunderstanding. Lily was shaking beside me. Mason, her 17-year-old brother, had refused to come. He still didn't believe his parents could do this. He was staying with Jennifer's sister, who insisted this was all a mistake. That I was lying. That Lily had somehow fabricated the evidence. Some people can't accept the truth, even when it's literally in the walls. The criminal case took 9 months to resolve. Robert and Jennifer both maintained their innocence at first, claiming the thallium was experimental medication, that they'd been deceived by pharmaceutical contacts, that they genuinely thought they were helping me. But the evidence was overwhelming. The emails planning my death, the research on undetectable poisons, the forged documents, the embezzlement. Jennifer's aunt's suspicious death 5 years earlier, now definitively linked to thallium poisoning through exhumation and testing. Eventually, they both accepted plea deals to avoid trial. Jennifer pled guilty to attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. She was sentenced to 14 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 12 years. She also faced disbarment and permanent loss of her law license. Robert pled guilty to attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 12 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 10 years. He lost his chemical engineering license and his job. They were also ordered to pay restitution of $487,000, covering my medical bills, property damage, decontamination costs, legal fees, and pain and suffering. Given their bankruptcy, I'd never see a penny. But Sandra was right, it mattered to have it on record. The investigation into Jennifer's aunt's death resulted in additional charges. Jennifer was indicted for that murder as well. Another 8 years added to her sentence, to run consecutively. She'll be in prison until she's 72 years old. Robert will be 62 when he's released. Their marriage ended in divorce while they were both in prison. Robert blamed Jennifer for the embezzlement that made them desperate. Jennifer blamed Robert for designing the poison system. Their lawyers fought over who was more culpable, each trying to reduce their client's sentence by throwing the other under the bus. In the end, they both went to prison for a very long time. Mason, their son, eventually accepted the truth. It took months, therapy, and finally reading the trial transcripts. He moved in with me, finished his senior year of high school, and is now at State University studying criminal justice. I want to understand why people do this, he told me. How parents can become monsters. How to recognize the warning signs. Maybe I can help protect other people from families like mine. Lily graduated with her art, restoration degree and started her own business. She still helps me with home projects, Though we both get a little anxious when working on walls now. She's engaged to Marcus, planning a wedding for next spring. I updated my will immediately. Robert is explicitly excluded, receiving nothing. Lily and Mason split everything equally, with ironclad trusts that ensure they'll be financially secure. Thomas's business records and tools went to Mason, who's showing interest in real estate management. Thomas's art collection went to Lily. They'll remember their grandfather's values: hard work, integrity, family loyalty that's earned, not assumed. Sandra helped me process the legal aftermath. The decontamination of my house cost $43,000. Every pipe had to be replaced, every surface tested, the poison system dismantled and disposed of as hazardous waste. You could sell the house, Sandra suggested. Start fresh, somewhere new. No, I said firmly. I won't let them drive me from my home. Thomas and I built our life here. I'm staying. Dr. Chen monitored my recovery for a year. The chelation therapy removed most of the thallium from my system, but the damage was done. I have permanent kidney damage, neuropathy in my hands and feet, ongoing digestive issues. You'll deal with these health problems for the rest of your life, Dr. Chen told me gently. They shortened your lifespan, damaged your quality of life, but you're alive. With treatment and monitoring, you can have many good years ahead. I'll take it. Lily saved my life. I get to watch her marry Marcus. I get to help Mason heal from his parents' betrayal. I get to keep managing my properties, running my business, living on my terms. 3 years later, I'm 71 years old and thriving, despite the permanent damage. I sold 3 of my rental properties and used the proceeds to establish the Thomas Patterson Foundation for Elder Protection. We provide free legal services to elderly people being financially exploited by family members. We fund research into detecting elder abuse. We train doctors and social workers to recognize the signs of poisoning and exploitation. Lily runs the foundation's outreach program while building her restoration business. Mason works there part-time while finishing his degree. We've helped over 200 elderly people escape abuse situations in 3 years. I speak at law enforcement conferences about my case, about how to recognize systematic poisoning, about the warning signs of family exploitation, about how predators use gaslighting to make their victims seem incompetent. Your children are not entitled to your money, I tell audiences. You earned it, you control it. And if they're pressuring you for power of attorney, for access to accounts, for early inheritance, ask yourself, do they love me or do they love what I can give them? The responses are heartbreaking. So many people share stories of children who steal, who manipulate, who poison relationships, and sometimes literally poison their parents. Elder abuse is epidemic, and most of it happens in families that look normal from the outside. Robert and Jennifer are still in prison. They'll be there for years yet. Their house was foreclosed on. Their retirement accounts seized to pay restitution. They lost everything they'd been willing to kill me for. Mason visits his mother occasionally. He says she's still in denial, still claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that she was trying to help me. Robert refuses all visitors, including Mason. He's become a ghost, serving his time in bitter silence. I don't visit. I don't write. I cut them completely out of my life. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, and attempted murder is at the top of that list. Lily married Marcus in a beautiful ceremony last year. Small wedding, just family and close friends. During her toast, she said to Grandma, who taught me that family is about loyalty and love, not blood and obligation, and to Grandpa Thomas, who taught us that integrity matters more than wealth, we drank to that. To integrity, to real family, to survival. Mason is engaged now too, to a wonderful young woman named Sarah, who lost her own grandmother to family financial exploitation. They're planning to work together in elder advocacy after graduation. Last month, on the anniversary of the day, Lily found the poisoning system. We had a small family dinner. Lily and Marcus, Mason and Sarah, Sandra, Dr. Chen, Detective Walsh, who's become a friend. We toasted Thomas's memory. We toasted justice. We toasted the family we'd built from the ruins of the one that tried to destroy me. To Grandpa, Mason said, raising his glass, who built something real through honest work. And to Grandma, who survived her own son's attempt to murder her, and turned that horror into hope for others. To chosen family, I added, to the people who proved their love through actions, not words. To justice and healing, we drank to that. To survival, to justice served. 2 lives rebuilt stronger than before. My son tried to kill me with poison hidden in my walls. His wife tried to help him murder me to cover her embezzlement. They planned it for years, executed it with chemical precision, and documented my decline as they caused it. Instead, they lost everything. Their freedom, their family, their future. I kept everything. My life, damaged but functional. My properties and business. And most importantly, my real family, the grandchildren who chose to stand with me, who risked everything to save me, who proved that love is more than genetics. I'm 71 years old. I manage 12 rental properties. I run a foundation protecting people like me. I watch my grandchildren build lives based on integrity and compassion. I wake up every morning in the home Thomas and I built together, breathing clean air, drinking safe water. This is my life, not the one I expected. I never imagined my son would try to murder me. I never imagined I'd cut my only child completely out of my life. But I'm here. I'm alive. I'm surrounded by people who love me for who I am, not what I have. That's justice. That's peace. That's family. So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Have you ever discovered that family members were betraying you in ways you never imagined? How did you find the strength to protect yourself? Let me know in the comments and subscribe for more stories like mine.